The world is a diverse and beautiful place. Have you ever wanted to travel the globe, exploring one exotic land, and waking up the next day somewhere completely different? Experiencing the nature, the people, the culture, the art, ancient and new. Come along with me. From ice to desert, beaches to mountains, in the jungle, in the city, and everywhere in between. Soaking in the splendor Mother Earth and all her inhabitants have to show us. By air, by land, by sea, this is Around the World at the Speed of Mike.
On the 1st of February 2018, I flew into Colombo, Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka was basically the cornerstone of my entire trip. I wanted to see a lot of things, but I don't know, there was a lot of pictures of like elephants and, I don't know, fishermen on poles and just tropical paradise that Sri Lanka is. And it just created this yearning in me to go see it and be part of it. And Sri Lanka did not disappoint. I had an awesome time. I loved it. People have described Sri Lanka as being kind of like India light. And from a really basic perspective, that is pretty accurate. I've been to India. I love it. I love the people. There's a lot of things to see all over. You can spend a lot of time there. But there's several differences between Sri Lanka and India that make the former more preferable, especially if you're not a seasoned traveler. First off, most visible and obvious is the amount of garbage in India. Again, I love India, but parts of it are just completely, horrendously, trashed and filthy and disgusting. Even the air at points just makes you nauseous just to breathe it, and it'll get you sick right away. That being said, there are parts of India that are clean and fairly pristine and nice, and parts of Sri Lanka, they're not clean by Western standards, but in comparison to India, they are light years ahead, and because of the geographic proximity and kind of perceived cultural similarities, as a tourist going in, you might think Sri Lanka would be very similar to India, but it's not in that regard. Second thing is the visa. For India, it takes time to actually mail out the visa. You might not get accepted, and then you have to wait to get it back, and then it costs more. It's just not as convenient in that sense. For Sri Lanka, you just show up at the airport, and they just give it to you for $50. And $50 is a lot, but the country is so cheap it doesn't even matter. Also, India is way, way more crowded than Sri Lanka. Even just at all the tourist sites and stuff, being on the train. The train's still crowded too, but that's another thing to consider. Sri Lanka seems to have less scammers from what I saw. The trains seem to be more on time. And amazingly, you can drink the tap water there. It's completely clean. That's not the case in India, from what I've experienced. It's just an easier way in all respects, basically. And it has a lot of the same things that you would find in India for a kind of similar experience. India is just huge, and it has more to offer in the sense of environment and culture, I'd say. There's just a greater variety. Also, I think their food is slightly better, just my opinion. But if you're at all discouraged or, scared of actually going to India just because of all the hecticness and chaos and that stuff, Sri Lanka is definitely a good alternative. When you get to Colombo Airport, you just head straight up to customs, pay $50. Outside of the airport, there's a bus 187. Jump on that. I think it's just it's less than $1, and it'll take you to the city center, Colombo Fort, which is the bus and train station. From there, I just got on a train and headed straight to the southern beaches of Galle Fort. I think it was about a 3 to 4 hour train ride and cost $3. Let's check it out. established in 1588 by the Portuguese. Remember them? Connection! But shortly taken over by the Dutch less than 100 years later. The Dutch are the ones who fortified the walls to the point where you see them today. That's why Galle Fort is also called Dutch Fort. Yet another 150 years later, the English took over. So there's plenty of colonial architecture and history to be seen in the buildings, as well as a bunch of tour shops and lodging. The city of Galle, which the Dutch fort is part of, is the 9th largest in Sri Lanka, so it's not too overwhelming, but it's a good starting point to get supplies and head out to the other beaches in southern Sri Lanka. Hey, if you'd like to see more videos like that, make sure to subscribe to my channel and check out the rest of my videos around the world at the speed of Mike.